13 weeks into the NFL season. Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom Papa Shrill Knows podcast. Your boy Papa Shrill here this week after a Chiefs loss on Sunday Night Football against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Got plenty to cover on this one, as well as I'm going to start with a certain play from the Texans and Broncos game that I kind of wanted to talk about, but plenty to talk about just pertaining to the Chiefs. Gonna go just over the receiving core of the offense again, and it seems like every time I get to this point to record a podcast, it seems like it's a negative at this point. So, a couple weeks ago with the Eagles game, of course, put out the podcast about the stagnant offense, and we're gonna have to revisit that essentially in this one as well. But just to get right into it and get started, there was a play that I saw. I was watching Red Zone on Sunday, and I happened to see between Texans and Broncos as they were playing, and just rewatching it right now. It was just a quick little pass out to P. Ryan, and the ball was stripped away and taken in for a touchdown by Desmond King. So now what made this play, which should have been a scoop and score fumble for 6 points for the Texans, was actually ruled and came back as P. Ryan was stopped, was given forward progress, was stopped essentially. So the turnover did not count. It was a catch. Forward progress was stopped. And I would agree that forward progress was stopped. It was definitely a bang-bang play, but then on the replay, you could see it was definitely, King gets a hold of him, kind of pushes him back a couple of yards, and with P. Ryan still trying to move forward, trying to gain some yardage there, I feel like you can make an argument the other way, or both ways. So what intrigued me so much about this play was to go to the tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it, but the quarterback sneak that the Eagles have been running for over the past really couple years now, with 2023 and 2022 last year, and has been an unstoppable play, which kudos to them, and they have the right personnel. But I don't know how many times I've seen forward progress stopped on that play, only to let the play continue, and the Eagles eventually, either get the first down or get the touchdown. And I guess not even to put it on the Eagles, it's just they're the team that runs it so much and so often that obviously that's your first thought is the Eagles, and that's the team that's made this play such a hot topic. So it's just you can't have it both ways. You can't have a play like this that causes a defensive turnover and a score for the defense that ends up being a play that is turned back over. It was a 3rd and 3. Ball was caught pretty much right at the line of scrimmage, and he was met by King at the line of scrimmage, and there was no gain on the play. So the Broncos did end up punting on the next play. So it didn't, have a huge impact in that regard. But to the score, I know the Texans ended up winning the game, but at that point it was 16-3, I believe, which would have put it up to 22-3 at that point. 23, obviously, but a 20-point game if they get the extra point. So a big change in that game, whereas I feel like when you see it on the offensive side, there's plenty of time, especially on that play, on the push play, when you're looking at a sneak, that a lot of extra time is given to kind of let the offense get ahead, and that's where you have to balance something like that, because then it becomes an issue on other plays like this, where this wasn't a push play or anything. It was just a check down by Russ Wilson to his back, P. Ryan, and was stopped. But at the same time, I just feel like you kind of have to let that fumble rock if you're going to let that go on the other side, where the Eagles go for a push play, or anybody goes for a push play. You're 1 yard out, you get kind of stopped right there at the line of scrimmage, and then the second push, that second wave comes in, and you get the first down or the touchdown or whatever it may be. You can't have it both ways, I think, on that. So I think the NFL has a lot to think about on that play. Obviously, everybody, not everybody, but it's a polarizing play. You either love it or you hate it, and I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I just don't like the. I'm personally not a fan of the push. Sneak is one thing, but then to have the push, and then now it's creating this gray area of when is a play dead, and how are we letting plays go like that? So I don't know. We'll see what the NFL does with it in the offseason, if they do anything with it. But either way, I think an interesting debate to be had about forward progress. Where does it end the play once forward progress is dead? How much time do you give it? So let me know what you think. Put your comments down in the comments section wherever you're listening. As this podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. As well, shout out to the YouTube channel, Papa Shro. Plenty of film reviews, as well as these podcasts going up over there on YouTube as well. So like and subscribe over there. But just to kind of get into now the Chiefs and what they did this weekend. Obviously a down performance for the Kansas City Chiefs in a 27-19 loss to the Green Bay Packers. Patrick Mahomes ended up 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception on what was a really tough play, to say the least. Isaiah Pacheco had a huge game, 18 carries, 110 yards, and a touchdown. And now to get into the receiving corps. Or before we do that, I'm going to start off with a bit of a more positive note, and that's the defense. I wanted to go over the defense first. Just because I feel like they've been the bright spot. They did kind of let the Chiefs down a little bit on Sunday night. But nonetheless, they've had such a great season. And this was really the first time I feel like we've seen a team able to kind of, especially in the second half and later in the game, be able to do more. Second half, they put up 13 points to win the game, 7 in the third, a couple of field goals in the fourth. And about midway through the fourth quarter as well, right there at the end of the fourth quarter, getting that second field goal, and then worked their way with 5:28 left with the Jordan Love touchdown pass to Christian Watson, who had a phenomenal game, to say the least. Christian Watson had a great game. The secondary, first time that they, I feel like, really gave up a big game. Just to go over the Packers' receiving stats, I guess Christian Watson didn't have... Oh, that's rushing. I was about to say, how was that his performance? I was looking at the rushing tab right here, and Christian Watson did have 2 carries for 15 yards, and I just thought, before I read the carries, I was just sitting there thinking, there's no way. I mean, he had a huge game. 9 targets for Christian Watson, 7 catches, 71 yards, pair of touchdowns, 27.6 fantasy points, have a day. Romeo Doubs also had a great game, 4 catches on 5 targets for 72 yards. Ben Sims was the other one with the third receiving touchdown. 1 target, 1 reception for 1 yard. And why not with the touchdown? How about that? So the Chiefs did give up a couple of big performances. You have 2 receivers over 70 yards, another one over 40. You got a tight end over 35 yards with 37 total. It was a tough day for the Chiefs secondary, I feel. Either way, though, 27 points, obviously not ideal at all. And just to kind of get into what I wanted to look at the grades real quick. So week 13, by far the worst game for any DB on the Chiefs roster, really. Trent McDuffie, the highest rated with a 58.1. Targeted 5 times, gave up 4 catches for 30 yards. One of the touchdowns, Joshua Williams was the other touchdown. Snead, 57.4. Jalen Watson, 46.5. And Josh Williams with a 44.5. And these are the coverage grades per PFF that I am looking at right now. Just a rough outing for the DBs for the Kansas City Chiefs. So not to stick on this too long, kind of look at the rush defense. Decent, a lot better up front with the run defense. Justin Reed at a 74.4. Matt Dickerson, 73.7. Leo Chanel, another good game, 72.2. George Karlaftis, 70.8. And so the run defense, I feel like, was a little bit better. But obviously the coverage was just not there on Sunday night. Let's see the rushing yards. 73 for A.J. Dillon on 18 carries, so not a bad game. Gave up 4.1. Patrick Taylor had two big runs, or the one big run, 24 yards, but 2 carries for 29 yards on the day. Isaiah Pacheco, though, he has done an amazing job. And to now kind of move over to the Chiefs offense now, which is what everyone is still talking about, I feel, and for good reason, because it's been terrible. It's been absolutely awful. The Chiefs receiving core, I mean, it has to be better. And I don't know at this point if it is going to get better. I just don't know. If this is pretty much what I think you've got, essentially, if you're the Chiefs. I mean, I'm kind of flipping through some of the grades just looking at Sunday night. But with the receiving grades. But this is kind of like what you see is what you get. And I think a big dose of reality, because the Raiders game was an amazing game in the second half. Offense kind of showed what they could do. And even, like the Miami film that I put out about a week ago or so, I'm working on the Eagles film now, and pretty much I'm done going through the film. And even in that, on the film, it's not terrible. And it's just there's been lapse of execution, but the Chiefs have to be perfect, I feel like. Especially in a game like Sunday night where the defense wasn't on. And the defense has been obviously the biggest contributor to the wins this year. And you look at an 8-4 team that could easily be a lot worse with a defense that isn't as good. I mean, you look at that Miami game and how good the offense looked in the first half. I mean, they didn't score a single point in the second half. So you have to put it all together if you're Kansas City. And I think this is a season at this point where, a couple of weeks ago I said I was starting to kind of get worried. The Raiders game kind of, I think, gave the fans just a false sense of security to a point. And, 31 points, a big breakout performance for Rashee Rice. And everything was trending in the right direction. And now I don't think that it can't trend back in the right direction, but this was a huge, step back for the Chiefs. And, looking at going into, we're going to snap counts in a minute, but just even looking at the targets, Rashee Rice, 9 targets, 8 catches, did have the one drop, 64 yards. He did not end up in the end zone. It was Noah Gray, actually. 1 catch for 2 yards on his only target that went for 6. Next was Travis Kelce with 5 targets. He had 4 catches, 81 yards. MVS, 5 targets, 2 catches, 25 yards. And then you had Pacheco with 3 catches for 13 yards. And then a whole bunch of guys with 1 catch. Richie James was the only one over 10 yards with a 12-yard catch. Sky Moore, 1 catch on 2 targets for 5 yards. So, looking at the snap counts and kind of where they're trending the last few weeks, obviously MVS, the big-time game against Philly, the big drop that he had. Saw 37 snaps that week. That was 47%. Last week against the Raiders, 32 snaps. That was actually 53%. And this past week, down to 33 snaps. So he's been a little bit lower these last couple of weeks. about average for MVS this season is around, looks like kind of the mid 40s. Had 55 snaps in week 2. That was his season high. 47 in week 7. But he's kind of stayed in the same range. 475 total snaps this year. Trailed by Sky Moore at 456. Sky Moore had 44 snaps this past week. 46 for Rashee Rice, which is, his has been way up after the bye week. Kind of starting to go towards the bye week. He kind of stepped up with a lot more snaps. Obviously, his season low with 12 at Jacksonville week 2. But 45, 40, and 46 this past week. While Justin Watson, 40 snaps. Kadarius Toney, 12 after not playing against the Raiders. Had 22 snaps against the Eagles in week 11. So kind of see, obviously, the usage has been very sporadic for Kadarius Toney. McCall Hardman was out as well. 4 snaps for Richie James and that one big catch. And I do think Richie James could be a big piece to add more snaps to, give more playing time to. And I think he showed that a little bit. He showed that potential at least. I don't want to say he showed that because he hasn't really got too much of an opportunity at all this season, it doesn't seem like. But he has come up big, and I did see a stat, and I know I'm kind of just rambling this off the top of my head, but last year amongst rookies, he had the highest catch rate. I just saw that somewhere thrown in some type of Chiefs thread or something like that. Just as, receivers has been a big topic these last few weeks. And just to go to MVS and Sky Moore, just to kind of talk about this, I kind of, already delved into the snap counts and stuff, but Sky Moore, that it seems like MVS and Sky Moore a lot of times, or I feel like I see it more out of MVS, but giving up on routes and just doesn't feel like they're in the right place at the right time, and whatever that is, it's not getting fixed, it's not getting better. So at this point in the season, I feel like they're going to have to try new things. Maybe like a Richie James. Maybe finding a way to get McCall Hardman involved more. And obviously he didn't play this last week. I don't think he went on IR. I can't remember if I saw that or not. Just off the top of my head. But finding ways to get more people involved and, really attack with Rashee Rice. And Kelsey, it seems like it just depends on what defense they're playing and kind of hit and miss with him. But maybe Noah Gray is a guy that could step up more. I think what we've seen out of Noah Gray has been, pretty reliable all season long. And, the last couple of years, he's been a familiar face that Mahomes has, built a rapport up with the last few years. Justin Watson as well. To continue to see him out there and doing his thing, just because he's had such a good season, at least for what, what it's worth. I feel like, again, it goes back to, like I was saying in the last podcast, was, Justin Watson with $1 million cap hit is wildly outperforming his, the expectations that you have on a guy that's on a $1 million cap hit. And as I said, 40 snaps for him last week. So just going back to see his stat line one more time. I don't think he was targeted at all, I guess. Yeah. Not on the list. So not even targeted last week, but on the field for 40 snaps. So now is a big thing to look out for before I kind of go on to my next topic, is how's Mahomes going to feel next week? Buffalo at home, Sunday afternoon, I believe. And I do believe I will be at that game. What kind of trust is he going to have in his receivers? Because I feel like on Sunday night, and I tweeted this, I believe, what exactly did I say? Too much trust in the wrong guys. And that Sky Moore pass, the one that got intercepted, was absolutely, to me, you put too much trust in a guy that you shouldn't have trusted like that. How is that going to affect Mahomes? Because Mahomes has mentioned it a couple of times, I feel like I've heard, in different times with the media. post game, or maybe it was during the week. But either way, while he was at the podium, saying that Andy Reid, kind of challenged him to have more trust in his receivers in the bye week, and really challenged Mahomes to go out there and, be confident in his receivers. How is Mahomes going to respond now to not only the Philly game, because I feel like Mahomes has kind of gotten, it was definitely over that at this point in this game, just to see the throws he was making. The fact that he went back to MVS on a big time deep route that, neither here nor there, I don't think that affects the outcome of the game 100%. Obviously, because the Chiefs were already in this position, but a blatant miscall on a defensive pass interference, which that whole drive was just absolutely fumbled by the officiating crew. Now, let's just get into that for a minute. I'll go ahead and just kind of give my thoughts. The Hail Mary is kind of a tough one just because it's a Hail Mary. That one, I'm almost the most indifferent on whether it should have got a call or not. The MVS one was egregious. I mean, you have a guy on his back. And I mean, I don't even know how many yards that would have been worth or anything like that exactly. But a huge play, huge momentum swing. Absolutely changed the course of the game at that point. Maybe doesn't change the outcome, but definitely changes, what's happening on the field. The Chiefs still would have had to have scored a touchdown, got a 2-point conversion, and, to even tie the game, to try to send it to overtime. But the not late hit, but unnecessary roughness. I think at this point, what I kind of feel like is all quarterbacks should get that benefit of the doubt. And I feel like from a league standpoint, obviously here, I'm a Chiefs fan, so, that's our quarterback. I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes getting hit like that. But I do think from a league standpoint and from a fan standpoint, it's kind of two different ideologies in a play like that because, fans, we like to see the big hits. We like to see, but I just don't know if you want to see your quarterbacks getting hit like that. And granted, you had a huge performance on Monday Night Football from a backup quarterback where one of the superstar quarterbacks in the league right now was not playing and is out for the rest of the year, and you just got this guy, and honestly, off the top of my head, I don't remember his name. I think Browning. I do not remember his first name. Hell of a game on Monday Night Football, and quite the game to watch. Jake Browning, I think. I might be wrong on that, so I don't think you want to see your quarterbacks getting hit like that. And I think for the most part, that is why we saw that. But then you also think on the other end, or why we saw the flag. But on the other end, is that why we didn't see the flag on the what was that, the pass interference? Is that why they went to go make up that call because they looked at the jumbotron and said, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have thrown that penalty flag." And just going back to the quarterbacks for a minute, I know, you got all different types of quarterbacks in the league, and one's geared more towards running, and Mahomes has ran a lot this season and been able to make some big plays, and has one of the highest rates of getting a first down with his legs out of all scrambling quarterbacks in the league. But again, I think from a league standpoint, you just don't want to see your quarterbacks getting hit like that. So I'm kind of indifferent on that penalty too. And I know the 15-yarder helped the Chiefs, but at the same time, it's that tone setter. Instead of running in for a big hit like that, maybe could have run in and, not hit him as hard, which, at that point, I'm not going to get into the semantics of it too much, but I get it. It's football, so it's also hard to call that. When you got guys just out there playing the game. So to go into kind of one thing I wrote down of what could help the Chiefs, just because one, the injuries we saw on Sunday night, we saw a lot of guys go down. Justin Reed came back after going down. Pacheco obviously went out and came back before he was ejected from the game for throwing that left hook. Brian Cook went down. Drew Tranquil went down. And Brian Cook, I don't think they put him on IR yet and said he could be back for the playoffs. So, I mean, he's a trooper. If you've seen the picture of that, it is disgusting. But I think one thing at this point, also just looking at what happened on Sunday night, running back depth. Jerick McKinnon was inactive for this game, and Pacheco went down at one point in this game in a play that looked pretty nasty, with him getting kind of bent back and almost looked like his body was folded in two backwards. But he did end up getting right back into the game, made a huge play right after that, right when he came back in the game. But I think this shows a need that, obviously also you've got Pacheco. Let me see. What was his yards per carry? 6.1. 6.1 yards per carry. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 3 yards per carry. That was only on 2 carries. Kadarius Toney got in there with a carry as well. Both of them had 6 yards. So you have 3 carries, or 2 carries for your backup back, 3 carries combined with 2 other receiver and a back. Patrick Mahomes, 4 carries for 26 yards in the game, so your quarterback scrambled around a little bit here and there. But the Chiefs need running back depth, I think. And, I know it doesn't fit Andy's philosophy 100%, but something's got to happen. Something's got to happen to help get this offense together and moving better. And if that's adding another running back to this mix, whether you're going out and trying to find a veteran running back to pick up, and off the top of my head, I have no idea who's on the market. Let's play a little game and just see who could possibly be out there. The first thing that comes up, searched on Google, free agent wide receivers, after I typed in free agent. I think they know I'm a Chiefs fan. All right. Well, we'll circle back to that in a second. But adding some running back depth, even if it was, I cannot think of it. Pierce, I think. I cannot think of the man's name that had such a great preseason for the Chiefs. But adding some running back depth, running the ball a little bit more. And I know you're giving, Pacheco 18 carries a game. I think he had 19 against the Eagles. I can't remember how many he had last week against Vegas. But, he's running the ball a lot. So, and doing well with it. Again, 6.1 yards per carry. Pretty darn good. So, I'm still not seeing anything on right now. Either way, I think adding some running back depth, at least one more back, could really help run the ball a few more times a game. And that could, maybe help alleviate, put a little bit more trust into it. 33 attempts for Mahomes on Sunday night. So, and just do what you got to do to win, I think, at the end of the day. Because, if you turn this team into I don't want to say run first, because I don't think we'll ever see that with an Andy Reid team, but run more team and defense, start using that clock a little bit more. The Chiefs' opponents are still going to want to play that game of keep the ball away from Mahomes. The less time Mahomes has to work with, the better, which is still true. But this offense is just not what they have been. This offense is not what they have been at all in the Patrick Mahomes era. And, for them to get this to work, I think they're just going to have to do something different. So something different than they've done. So I don't think I think adding running back depth would help out to giving this team better life and maybe a better shot in the playoffs, honestly, because all you have to have is one of these games, and it's become a little too frequent at this point in the season, looking at an 8-4 team that is 4th, I think, in the NFL or in the AFC standings. And let's go to that now. Or let's look at the upcoming schedule. So, I mean, there's not much time left in the season, and all of a sudden this Chiefs team has went from being the team that you're probably going to see the number 1 seed to will they win the AFC West, which is insane to think. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Broncos are 6-6. They're only 2 games behind the Chiefs. And with 5 games left, you have the Bills at home, on the road at New England. You get the Raiders on Christmas Day at home, Bengals on New Year's Eve at home. I'll hopefully be at that game as well. And on the road at the Chargers, January 7th. Now, to me, this looks like an easy enough schedule that the Chiefs could definitely win out. The Bills are not what they were, but neither are the Chiefs. I think we've clearly seen the Bills are 6-6 right now. The Patriots is a gimme game, but another game that's one of those games. It's like, all right, you cannot play down to your opponent. And I think a few times that the Chiefs have done that this season, and that Broncos game, I think, is a perfect case, which they've absolutely turned it around. But this team is a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde, it seems like, almost, just because it's like one week you get this world beater team that you feel like could beat anybody, and even with the Eagles game and this Packers game, feels like they beat themselves. Almost every loss this year feels like the Chiefs have beat themselves. But the Packers game is the first time where it kind of almost doesn't feel that way as much, and feels more of a reality check in a way, I think, because just for the simple fact of, what this is happening too frequent, essentially. The way that the Chiefs are just not executing and not playing good football, really. And I'm excited to get into the film from this Packers game, just to kind of see, exactly where it went wrong. And so we'll be having more film reviews. And let's see if I can... I'll just go to the standings. Just trying to look at the playoff picture on NFL.com just to kind of go over real quick where we're at. You have both the Ravens and Dolphins at 9-3 right now at top of the AFC standings. And then you have the Jags and Chiefs. After that, then, man, it's going to be interesting to see all the wild cards, because you got the Steelers and Browns both at 7-5, but the Bills and Broncos at 6-6 as well. Meanwhile, the Texans are down there at 7-5 as well. So you got Steelers, Browns, Texans, Colts, all 7-5. Meanwhile, right there outside looking in, Denver and Buffalo at 6-6. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this shapes up at the end of the year with the AFC. Not at all what I expected going into the season, or I think a lot of people expected going into the season. And the Bengals are still down there at 6-6 with that win on Monday Night Football. So definitely don't count them out. The Jags are 8-4. It's just been a nutty year. It's been a nutty year altogether. So again, going back to the film reviews, there will be more film reviews coming up on YouTube, Papa Shro YouTube channel. Like and subscribe this video here on YouTube, or go over there and check out whatever you want to on their film reviews, the podcast as well. Substack, papashrows.substack.com. Check that out. Put up blogs on the Chiefs all season long, and let's see, thinking on the spot here now. Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're listening on this, like if you enjoyed. Again, over on YouTube, like the video if you enjoyed, and we will see you next time to talk more Chiefs football.